Stand for the pledge, and Pastor Ken Nichols is going to lead us in an opening prayer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray, please. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this evening, for this day, opportunity to share our thoughts, our concerns, and our beliefs about what is best for this town, this village. Father, I thank you for the folks that are willing to serve and to give up their time. May you bless them for it. Father, as we progress through the evening, may your will be done. May we be encouraged and excited to be part of Blissfield. Just all that this town has meant to many of us. Those that are new in the community, those that have been raised here, those that have graduated, those that have learned to love this town and to call it their own. Father, may you be honored and praised in all that we do and say this evening. And may we come to decisions and conclusions in ways that brings you honor and glory and builds all of us up and builds this town as we continue to work through difficult circumstances and times in our economy, as jobs are created and lost. We give you thanks and praise, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Roll call.
Bob Odette,
Here.
Glenn Houston, here. Ken Clayton,
Present.
Mike Connor,
Here.
Gary Payne,
Here.
Barbara McHenry, here. Timothy Waters,
Present. Line for minutes, regular council meeting, August 22nd, 2022.
Move to approve the minutes from August 22nd, 2022.
support.
Moved and supported, approved minutes of August 22 as presented. Any corrections or questions? Now you can call the roll, please.
Mike,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Gwen. Yes. Barb. Yes. Shane,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes, and it's approved. On to presentations and communications. Number one, Aquatic Center Season 2022 Volunteer Recognition.
I'm gonna stand and Peyton and Matt and family, you guys come up as well, either podium or here, wherever. So I really wanted to just take a minute to specifically recognize these three individuals. They had this last season at the Aquatic Center spent a ton of time volunteering. Matt he volunteered to coach our swim team with the help of Pam as well, and was there, I'm gonna say almost every day. I'm thinking pretty close, as well as brought some great ideas, different things. So a huge thank you to him. Pam helped coach the swim team. She also did a in-service for our lifeguards to help train them on lifeguard swim lessons. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank for a moment. She stayed at a lot of those lessons and helped the guards, taught some of them herself, even stayed after lessons were done to help a kiddo that was really making some progress but needed a little more attention. She even helped cover when we were short management, to be that person over 18 and help be there for the guards and check people in, among numerous other things that I know I'm forgetting. And then Peyton, last but not least, who's, I'm gonna say, our future lifeguard in the making. Peyton put in over 80 hours this year at the Aquatic Center volunteering. I'm gonna, majority concessions. Did you do some other fun stuff? Just concessions? But definitely built a relationship with all of the guards and was a friendly face, familiar face for everybody to see. So just huge kudos to them. Volunteering takes a lot of time, it's demanding, and we could not have had a successful year without these 3 individuals as well as some others. So I do have a certificate for each of them and then a season pass for them for next year's aquatic season. So
I just wanted to thank everybody for the pool. I actually taught swim lessons when it was down there. And I'm now teaching kids that I taught to swim, and I have to say that pool is so nice. It was definitely worth, I know some people didn't want it, but it's really nice, especially the 0 entry for the kids that are afraid to put their face in. They can stand in water this deep. Makes them feel confident, but I just really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for such a great tool. It's a real asset to our community.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Hey, Peyton, did you eat any of those concessions? I paid for them. I kind of figured you did. I kind of
Flag presentation.
So I don't really have anything too fancy for this, but I did want to just share with council that our state representative, Bronna Colley, did present the village council with a state flag that was flown over the Capitol in Lansing, I believe in September of 2019, I think it was. So I just wanted to present that to all of you guys, and then you guys let Lisa or I know what you want to do with that, if you want us to get a display or anything, just let us know.
I would like to get a card sent to Rhonda and thank her for doing that for us.
Yeah.
So we can all sign. The agenda. September 12th, 22.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented for September 12th, 2022.
Support. Moved and supported to approve the agenda for September 12th, 2022. You can call the roll.
Barb,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Gwen. Yes. James,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes. You got a public comment items on the agenda? Moving on to unfinished business.
I did have a couple items for the unfinished business, but Danielle, you answered all of those questions in your weekly update. One was regarding the rear, and I understand what's going on there. The other was regarding the library and the status there as well. So thank you. I do have a question regarding the ARPA funds. I believe Mr. Martis sent something out for a date on that. Did you plan to attend that session, or was I didn't know what the game plan was, please?
Yes, it's this Wednesday at 6 p.m. Normally I try to attend the DDA meetings in case they have questions for me, but I had let Laura know a week or two ago that I wasn't going to be able to make it, so that I could attend that meeting and see what the county decides, and then I will report back to all of you and let you know what happens.
Okay, thank you so much.
Right, moving on to new business. Item number 1, payroll.
I move to approve payroll register for August 2022 in the amount of $134,995.53.
I'll support.
Moved and supported to approve the payroll register for August 2022 in the amount of $134,995.53. You can call the roll, Lisa.
Tim,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes. Motion carries. Action item 2, accounts payable.
I'll move to approve the accounts payable for the period of August 10th, 2022 to September 13th, 2022 in the amount of $1,056,680.92.
I'll support.
Moved and supported to approve the accounts payable for the period of August 10 to 2022 to September 13th, 2022 in the amount of $1,056,680.92. Those are the bills for August. Are there any questions on those bills? If not, you can call the roll, Lisa.
Gwen,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes. Motion carried. Action item 3, citizen request, Matt Tester.
I guess I would defer to, I mean, I included the information that is here, to answer any questions you have, but he has specifically written what he's requesting from the village council there. I attached the sporting documentation. If you have questions for myself or Phil or Matt, I think we're all available. And we will try to talk about whatever questions you may have.
Obviously, I would believe that all of council has read the information. What are the options, for lack of a better word, Danielle, that we do with this? What you've got your, the statements, et cetera, made. What is there to really discuss?
Well, I mean, I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Phil, that again, I think we've talked about this before, council, you guys adopt and set the policy, the ordinances, and you don't necessarily have the authority to go against those ordinances. Now, if certainly would have more than staff, not necessarily more, because we enforce and follow the policy you guys set. Ideally, like if something is not how you want it, we would amend the ordinance or change it. But the request is coming to you guys, again, because we don't have that authority with some past information. I mean, it is, I think, council's pleasure. I mean, I can share my recommendation, but I don't know. Outside of that, it is up to you guys.
So the memorandum of understanding from October 10th, 2020. That never came to council, as I can recall.
Correct. So Matt did come speak to me, I want to say in December, or was it February? I was going to say December or January. And at that time, he had indicated that there was something that took place that he did not need to pay that. So I had asked him, and it had been brought to my attention prior to that, and I had briefly looked, never found anything. So in my conversation with Matt at that time, I said, I haven't found anything, let me dig. So I went through council meetings, I searched files, I searched emails, looking for anything, and I found no record about any conversation to such at all. And then that's what prompted the letter that was included in your packet from me on February 16th to Matt. Because again, in my searches, I had no documentation at all. So I agree, Jerry, if there was something that went to council, it was not documented and I was not able to find it.
So there was a discussion that occurred in February. Correct, then following that discussion, you went ahead, Danielle, you went ahead, dug around, didn't find anything. You sent the letter then to me.
Correct.
And that's the letter that we have.
Correct.
What happened next?
I did not have any communications until I believe it was Dave that reached out to me because he had heard from Matt's attorney. And then I did speak, she did come in and request documents, which I also provided in your packet, just so you would have the same thing that they had.
Matt, didn't you approach council last summer down at the park about this?
Yes, it just kind of got blown away. Nothing ever happened.
I wasn't on council then, but I remember attending and you brought it up, and nothing transpired from that time.
this verbal agreement started back when maybe GZAC was even the administrator at that time. Definitely Wanacott. As I made those into one building, that's the way we hooked it up. We were the public restroom for the town because the other restrooms never seemed to be open. And the understanding was we would just have the one water bill. But all of a sudden we're getting multiple water bills. So the agreement was, we came back and said, hey, wait a minute. We went back to Fry and said, he goes, yeah, I am trying to sell the buildings. He said, we can leave it the way it is. And as we sell them, they need to be hooked back up. That's what we agreed on. Because it's been that way for 32 years.
So
I'll concur, go ahead.
is 109 tied in with 107? So
That
that
one
means,
is tied in with 107, and that's getting a bill.
so what are you getting billed for?
107, 107 and a half, 106 and a half, and 109. And now the 106 is actually 106 and 103.
Okay, six minutes.
Yes.
So it was October of last year when you started getting billed for all 6,
No, it's been several, 2 years.
2 years.
And then Jeff was with that meeting and he came in and said, okay, we need to eliminate that, take that off there. And it was supposed to be taken off the taxes in the roll, and it got taken off the taxes, but never taken off the roll.
All of this was a verbal discussion then, Matt?
Yes, that's the way it's been for 30 years, so that's pretty, but that we had to get in writing, so.
So when you started to receive the bills that included, that had the 6 total bills, and at that time you went ahead and asked, you talked with Joe Fry about it and Jeff Chubai?
My answer, yes.
Okay, and that's when they went ahead and they made the decision according to your letter. But you understand that that can't happen, and you may not have realized that that can't happen because it wasn't following an ordinance.
Well, what my attorney has said is the village administrator is in charge of the water system, so by your ordinance. And she could quote you what number that was where she found that.
And I'm gonna guess our attorney is gonna say something contrary to that.
So I think if we do this, then there's gonna be other folks that are gonna say, hey, I want to have mine back paid. We had our building, we had 1 unit, 1 hookup, 3 units. Then after the fire that we had 3 units, or 3 hookups, 3 units. And where we were paying 1 water bill, then all of a sudden, without any notice or anything, we got 3 water bills. So that wherever, from when we opened our business until the fire, we were paying 1. After the fire, we were paying 3. So I don't know where that all started or how it started with one unit and had 1 hookup and having all these different units.
Well, the apartments are separate, like they're supposed to be. The rest of it is tied into one building. Inside is one building. And if you're gonna try to do every single business, I've got 50 vendors in there that have tax ID license in an address of 103 West 8th. You're not gonna charge 50 water bills to the corner. I mean, I can easily close that place up, and in 6 months, you won't have it downtown. You've already lost the halfway house, which is a drawing card. You're gonna lose the hotel here shortly, in December. She's closed. This town's in trouble. Whether you want to realize it or not, it does not have any retail coming.
Phil, I thought you were gonna get ready to respond.
The question was, who's responsible? If I recall, the question that I heard was that the village administrator is responsible for administering the sewer and water ordinance. On a day-to-day basis, that's true. People use water. Their bills are calculated. The village administrator, through the auspices of the offices of the village, sends out water bills. As a general rule in the state of Michigan, almost every municipality that has a water system has an ordinance that supports that water system. Almost without fail, and I can't say totally without fail, those ordinances provide that there is no free water. When you receive a service, you're expected to pay for it. This ordinance does now and has provide that each residential equivalent has its own water meter and has its own water bill. And that's, I think, the conclusion that Mr. Jubai reached in, I believe it was August of 2020. Might have been September. He at that time directed the treasurer to bill, or agreed with the treasurer's interpretation of the ordinance. And I agree with that interpretation. He directed the treasurer to bill these properties the same way all the other bills in the village are processed. That is for each residential equivalent. There was apparently a meeting between Mr. Kester and Mr. Jubai and Ms. Moore, as well as Joe Fry, though his signature doesn't appear on the memorandum of understanding. The reason, to be fair, the reason being that nobody knows where he is. And maybe if you could provide him a copy of the memorandum of understanding, he would corroborate that. But as a legal matter, as much as counsel for Mr. Kester would like to see it differently, the administrator and the village attorney don't have the authority to bind the village to this sort of agreement, absent their full concurrence with it, which would mean that they'd have had to brought it to you and ask you if that was your pleasure.
To you being counsel.
That to you being the council. The final authority on the settlement of the village's bills or any legal proceeding rests with council, not with the administrator or the village attorney or anybody else for that. You elected representatives have to make that choice. So yeah, the village administrator is in charge of the process of that's provided for in the ordinance, but he or she don't have the authority to compromise that. The ordinance provides that if you receive a service, you're expected to pay for it. There are statutory exceptions, and you're aware of those hardship exceptions for certain kinds of services. This isn't one. And at least in my opinion, for what it's worth, there is no hardship here. Service was provided to these residential units. That service is expected to be paid for. Now, I think, I wasn't there, so I think I was kind of at a disadvantage. There have been late fees and interest and penalties attached to a past due balance for service that was provided. In fairness to Mr. Kester, at least until he was notified in February of 2022. Maybe he was aware of those things, maybe he wasn't. But certainly as of February 16th, 2022, he knew that those fees and interest and penalties were at issue. He took, neither he nor his attorney took any action on that notice for 6 months. The service, I think, there's no question about the fact that a person who receives the service should be expected to pay for it. That's provided for in the ordinance. As Danielle pointed out, your discretion, should you choose to exercise it, extends to those fees, interest and penalties. That's where you, if the request is for the service, the cost of the service to be waived, that's, I think, questionable. The other issues are a matter of policy that, you know, you have discretion.
Okay. We are paying for water through the 107 meter. It's all being metered. And it's going into one building. As far as the other meters and stuff, the village came and got some of those meters when we hooked all those buildings together because they could use them someplace else. So they took those meters, they took those little readers that were in the back of the building 20 years ago.
I'll personally vouch for Mr. Kester because I've been in the same situation for the past 4 years. When I had owned the building on the corner, I originally had been built for one and then magically, quote, it turned to 3 units because of my apartment, the karate location, and then the upstairs, or the karate upstairs, and then the Blissfield company downstairs. The building's fed by 1 meter, which shares a meter with the building next door. So you've got technically 4 units being fed off 1/2 inch meter. This is where the village ordinances contradict each other. Because you look at International Plumbing Code and our ordinance on billing of unit measurement and unit size, and then you have the stipulation that we're talking about based on units. Looking at International Plumbing Code, looking at the billing ordinance, the customer maintains everything past the meter. The village only cares what happens up to the meter. Businesses change, uses change, apartments change, units change. So why we're double dipping as a municipality and charging more for the different conflicting of units that we never can really tell, because it's none of our business, again, what happens after the meter. Somebody, International Plumbing Code says you can run, 6 units off of a 1 inch line. And we should say, you know what, we're gonna provide you 1 inch line, what you do with it is beyond you. If you don't have enough water pressure, get a bigger meter and a bigger line. That's my issue with it, is we're double dipping as a municipality because you've got, say, an 8 unit apartment complex being fed off of a 1 inch water line, but we're individually billing each apartment. So again, we're saying, we're giving you a meter and the meter rate is this amount. Yeah, everything past it, we're gonna still double dip and build individual accounts. When we went back and talked with Michigan Rural Water, they did all of their calculations on meters, the amount of meters, not units built. So we set those most recent parameters, those most recent rates at the number of meters, not the number of units. So I agree with them. We talked with Joe Fry, when I get the additional units added on. We talked with Jeff Jubai on what actually defined a unit. Mr. Kester's absolutely right. His business is one large business in numerous buildings. He shouldn't be billed for each individual building if he is operating as one large building. That's much like saying, take the Blissfield manufacturing, they have a 4 inch water meter or water meter and a water main going into that building. So they split up that building and put maybe 2 or 3 different smaller factories in that building. Are we gonna bill each independent small factory a 4-inch water fee charge every month?
And that's what.
Absolutely not. That would be completely unfair, completely unneeded.
Renters or your people.
And that could be a detriment to, like Matt is saying, expanding business or growing business, because nobody can afford, as a smaller factory, a smaller quote unit, a 4-inch water meter rate. It just doesn't make sense. So again, I know it's precedence and whatnot, but I've argued this for 3 years. I argued this at the last rate, discussion, that we need a better clarification on what is a unit. Our treasurer never defined what a unit was. Jeff Chubai never defined what a unit was. Our building inspector never did. So again, I feel for him and I understand where he's at, and maybe that the memorandum wasn't allowable and it should have happened, but this is something that we could have solved a long time ago and it's been on the radar. It's not right if he's using 1/2 inch meter and it's feeding this entire building. We shouldn't care. If he can get by with that, so be it. But he's already paying for 3 meters because there's 3 lines going up to that building. And I think that that's the way it should be. If he can suffice with that many meters and that much water usage coming out of those meters, then it should be beyond the village's interest what happens past that meter. Because everything past that meter, the property owner has to pay for.
Paying for 4 meters on 3 lines. That's what I'm paying for right now. Actually, there's 107.5 is also that, so there's 2 lines actually running and then getting the 4 bills.
Much like I paid for 3 units on 1 split 1/2 inch meter because I shared it with Heather Marks's property in the downtown area. It's difficult to get, I get. But if you're gonna bill the residents for each unit, then number 1, each unit should at least have its own water meter. And number 2, we have to change either the utility ordinance or whatever the general ordinance is in building rates, because they do conflict.
Matt, how many invoices are you receiving that you have actually no water flow for? 3. Okay. That's what I thought.
Does that amount to the delinquent charges on your tax?
That's part of it, because he was told last year to take it off, Brandon was told last year to take that off, get rid of that. And he did, but it continued to grow and he just put it back on this year. That's why it's so high.
So you have 4 meters and 6 buildings?
I have 3 meters and 7 buildings. So even if you're gonna do per building, it's still gonna be correct. It's all messed up. So nobody has addressed in the ordinance a mall situation like that. Malls are completely different than a regular building.
And the number of units could change invariably. And what are we gonna have the treasurer call every single resident in the year at the beginning of the year and say, hey, did you add an apartment to this? Did you do this? Did you change this?
In this situation, you're cannibalizing a store, right? You're turning multiple stores into one. So you're decreasing the amount of meters, you're decreasing the amount of units per se or whatnot. Is that a sustainable model?
What do you mean by sustainable?
Well, if you keep buying and monopolizing the block and taking meters offline and hooking them up to the previous unit, you're basically cannibalizing our operating system, you're cannibalizing our system. So at some point, it's no longer.
International Plumbing Code dictates how many quote units can be fed off a certain size meter. So again, that's why if we look at the meter size, that's what we should bill up to. And beyond it, if you have 80 units in a building fed off of a 1/2 inch meter, tough toenails if your water pressure is drips. We don't care about that. We care about the need and the cost to pay up to it.
No, I understand that, but that then changes the way we'll have to factor in
Absolutely.
water delivery
Yes.
per meter.
And you break it down, it's CRUs, I believe is what they call them. And that, this is exactly what we paid John Holland, was that his name, John Holland, to do, is to take a look at the number of meters and break it down, because obviously larger meter, larger usage should pay more because they use more, the maintenance costs more, all of that built together. So again, we should look at how, we know how much it costs, or we know how much it costs to produce the water, to maintain the system and sort and all that. So you look at a previous year and you say, okay, we separate water rates based on if it costs us $1.5 million to produce the water, then we set the rates by CRUs.
Is this
determine
one
what the
parcel
water
have
charges
you,
are.
has this been combined into one parcel? Or is this separate properties?
It's all separate properties.
So we have,
one,
we technically have properties within the village that does not have running water to it.
there is 101 on the corner, does not have, never had a meter since the day I bought it. It's only come in off from 103. That's like 30 some years ago.
So I think, Mike, what I'm understanding is we're charging him for coming through the first meter. And then we want to charge after that for the next building.
Well, that's what when we say when we want to charge, that's what the ordinance states.
That's what-
So we have to clarify that, okay? And that's the difference. I think that on council, we have known, because it's past due, like this has been brought up as you stated, for a number of years. And I think that we can concur that this is something that needs to have dialogue about, is this ordinance. However, the ordinance is the ordinance. And Matt, the verbal discussion is a verbal discussion. There was nothing documented, and that is an issue. I think you would understand that, but I hear where you're coming from, that so many other things were verbal for so many years, and I get that, that's past practice, that's what you've been used to. I understand that.
Well, why wouldn't I trust the village administrator and the attorney for the village?
Well, but to the same token, the village our village administrator did connect with you in February. Okay, and prior to that, if I'm understanding correctly, you've been receiving the billings. So I don't think I think you disagreed with how the billings were, but I don't know if it was necessarily addressed, because in your point of view, it was this way, but in the ordinance view, it's this way. I hear where you're coming from, and I know where council's coming from as well. I get this is an issue, but that's not what's at discussion here, is the necessary that issue. Play a part in it.
I don't know. I don't know. It sounds like we created an account that never existed.
Yeah, you turn nothing on, you have nothing to turn off.
The letter breaks down the billing and where the meters are on that first page. I think it's in that.
Which is not correct.
No, I understand the breakdown, but when the water system became a proprietary system, an account was created. Prior to that, one didn't exist. Is that?
No.
Well, it wasn't being built for it. There was no meter attached to it. So it might have, an account might have existed, but there was no running water to it. It was being fed off. It
You're talking about.
was being fed off another building, being plumbed in from another source, right?
But the buildings with no plumbing aren't receiving a bill. They're not receiving that availability charge. So I guess, I speaking to Matt specifically situation, I don't know what happened before me. That's what prompted the letter in February. That's the only thing I can really speak to. The unit thing, I know this has been talked about, and I actually have looked into it. And I guess there's a couple of things. No community has a good unit definition, and our ordinance does say what a unit is to a certain degree. Maybe not to the degree that you guys would like to see, and that's the part I'm struggling with. but it does say residential, business, things like that, and I'd have to pull it again to be specific. The second thing is John Holland, when he came in, they do look at they look at meters, but they are looking at your base fees. So your units, who are you billing? And they're factoring that into their fees. So if we change, they would need to remove the per unit to go to the individual meters only, which would change your fees. And I do agree with what Mike is saying about the plumbing code being different, but plumbing code does not address fees and how municipalities do that. They just say what standards you have to meet for construction. So they don't delegate or tell a community, this is the fee that's gotta be set, or you can only charge for this standard. They just say construction has to meet or exceed A, or whatever that might be. And it's very common for municipalities to charge per unit. And I get where Mike's coming from, but then on the flip side, kind of playing devil's advocate, if what he's saying is true, then I buy an apartment complex that has 20 apartments in it and it's fed by 1 meter, we're only going to charge 1 meter fee. And now every one of those residents in those 20 units aren't paying the monthly availability fee that every other citizen in the village of Blissfield is required to pay. And that's why a lot of municipalities put that per unit charge, because if I'm renting an apartment or I own a home, I should be treated equally within this community. I'm being provided the same quality and the same supply of water that any other individual is.
So what constitutes a unit then? Because I specifically had a lease that rented the upper floor and the bottom floor to one business. And I was told by our treasurer, because there was a bathroom upstairs, that made it a unit. So we need a much clearer definition of what a unit is and how are we gonna confirm that those units are consistent from year to year to year. Because if you knocked on my door, you said, hey, I'm coming in as a village, I want to see how many units you got in your building, until you get lost, shut the door. Because you don't have that, right?
I have the apartment separate, the way it's supposed to be. The downstairs is all one business. I own a percentage of the other 2 businesses that are in there. It's all mine. So if you want me to take the names off the other 2 businesses, I can do that, and it'll all be on the Blissfield AT Mall. It's one building, it's one level. The apartments are separate, because they should be.
And I'm open to that conversation. I've never not been, but I guess my thing is, again, I sent the letter, got no response until now. And I'm talking about units, like, I get your frustration, I do. I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't feel frustrated. And again, I can't speak to what happened in the past. I'm just trying to explain the unit situation and how I think the village probably arrived to that, because it is a common practice thing. I mean, if you want to, I did have a resident, and I'll tell you guys, or a business owner that reached out and said, this is not fair. And I said, okay, I want inspection of the property because we need to confirm. They allowed me to do that. I did an inspection, I took photos, I documented, and then I gave them a written follow-up. I would do the same thing for you. It's just, that's gotta, after my February letter, I didn't hear anything until.
Well, the reason we contacted to start with is because I had a buyer for the place. They wanted to see how many water bills we were going to get. It's like, well, that's still up in the air because I never got an answer back in November when I contacted Phil, your attorney, Phil Shazer. I talked to him. He goes, I'll look into it, and he never called me back. So that's how I ended up with you, Danielle. I was like, called you.
And I will only answer for myself. Again, what happened pre-me, I apologize, but I do feel like if you would have responded to my February letter, like, I will work with you, I will do whatever I can within my ability. Like, I cannot waive fees or penalties, but I do stand by the village's belief of having the units built separately, because I do think that that is what's fair to all of our citizens. Now, I don't make the policy. If council decides that they don't agree with that, then that's what I'll follow. I mean, that's the only thing I can do. And and I know I'm looking at you, but that would be for any citizen, like you guys have the authority. If you say, no, this unit per unit's ridiculous, we're gonna charge per meter, then that's what we'll do as staff, but outside of that, we have to follow the ordinance. And just our current ordinance, and again, I agree with you, Mike, does need clarification, and it's not that I don't agree, I just am struggling with that because no other community does it, so I'm really recreating something brand new for us. And I don't want to bring you guys something that is not correct or accurate, but right now it says that the minimum monthly usage fee for the meter for each residence, apartment, business, or rental unit connected to the water meter, and then the consumption. So they're being billed for usage once, and then just that availability fees per unit. And I believe that's how it's been interpreted, so that each unit that is a separate, has water service gets that monthly availability fee.
As far as my discussion with Matt, I did look at it, I brought it to the attention of the village administrator. She researched the issue, she produced the letter of February 2022. That was the following. I don't have the authority to.
After I met with her, that's how I got my answer.
Well, this is exactly why I want John Holland to come back. You know, we're waiting for, since March, right, for him to come back. Because
He came in May.
when I read through all that stuff, the Michigan Rural Water Association based the number of meters in the system, not the units users. So that created that restructure of what we had said.
And he is planning to come. I don't have a date, and I'm sorry about that, Mike, but he is planning to come present to you guys again. When we met with him, he came in May, him and Joe both did, to go through and revise all of the rate analysis and make sure that
But
they're
not before
recommending.
us, right? I mean, that's-
They've not come, no, I haven't even seen the final document yet, because as soon as I have that, I'll share, but they will be here to do a presentation again. But when we met with them while they were going through everything, we talked about the meters and the units that we bill for. And Brandon is able to, in BSNA, pull a report to show both, so they factored that in. And then I did specifically ask about the units, and I said, do you have, in fact, I have the email I can forward you guys. I said, do you have any other communities that have a definition or have had struggles with this? What have they done? And he said that it's very common for municipalities to have the unit, but he could not find any definition. Initially, he responded saying, let me look and do some
And
research.
he works with numerous.
Yes. So I mean, I've reached out to multiple people.
So if you had to think of this, Danielle, if what I'm hearing from you is that Matt's bill essentially would not be any different in another community based upon the number of meters / units.
I believe so, yes.
So what we have, even though we're not necessarily keen about it, is pretty normal practice.
Now, with saying that, I will say, based off of what Matt just said, if he owns, and I apologize, I'm not super familiar with your business, but if he has 3 businesses that he runs that each have a different name and that's one, and we need to adjust that, I would consider that that maybe needs to be changed. So outside of that, like his apartments and the separate businesses that have water service should be a separate unit. And it, again, my thought process, it goes, and he has mixed use, so it's a little bit unique, but it goes back to if you have another apartment complex or another building with multiple units, are you going to say that they don't have to each pay that same fee?
So that's a very valid point.
But the units can change from time to time, and that's my point. I had 3 units at one time in my building, and then I leased it, broke it down to 2. But did it get changed? No, absolutely not. I continued to pay 3 units until I sold the place. Even after providing the treasurer our lease that's stipulated that they rented both floors. So I went from 3 units to 2 units, and did it change? No.
But I wouldn't think that it would be necessary to the treasurer's decision. I would have thought that perhaps he would have talked to the administrator / an attorney to get that clarification and to make that change.
The treasurer or the receptionist, whoever's the ones that come in and deal with the billing day to day, they're the ones that switch all that stuff.
But I just heard Danielle say.
And I don't know what was done pre-me. I can tell you that while I'm here, I'm going to treat each case the same. So what I did for that business that I referenced where I talked, they made the complaint that they were being overcharged. I requested to go do a visual inspection and meet with them. I did like a
This is
little.
in Hastings or sorry, in Rawlins from where
No, this is in
here.
Blissfield. I did a little investigation, for lack of a better word, and sent them a follow-up letter. They did get reduced by a unit, actually two.
Well, that would have been nice.
One unit.
Well, and that's.
So I would do, anybody that is questioning, now, I'm not saying that will be the outcome, if they question it, and then I go and find out that they do in fact have two different units with water service, I might come back to them and say, sorry, this is what I found. And then they can appeal to you guys or bring it forward, but I would do the same thing for everybody while I'm here moving forward. They just need to reach out. And then as far as one being added, hopefully they're following our ordinance and pulling the plumbing permit, which should then in turn prompt staff to ask some questions.
It's a slippery slope because you got, not that I'm in favor of slumlords or anything, but you get somebody from the village representing the village coming into other properties, onto private property to quote, make these determinations, and then they find this or they find that they don't like, or they find, it could snowball into more potential issues down the line. Again, my point is, we maintain up to the meter, the property owner maintains everything past it. Do what you want to do, peace out, you pay for the meter, and you break down the CRUs based on the meter settings.
Where do we go with this issue today? Is our question remaining? And Matt, you were requesting for,
The 106 one to be, that bill to be removed.
which would eliminate your asking, that would do what for you?
That's eliminating the bill that was never there originally. I'm already paying an extra one for 109, even though it's coming through meter 107.
So what does that do from a financial standpoint for you?
Well, obviously, it's $100 and some a month.
Okay, I guess what I was under the impression is that you were looking to have the late fees, et cetera, deducted from your taxes.
Right. I'm trying to get the 106 bill that comes every month that where they turn nothing on, turn nothing off. You eliminate it altogether. That's what the original agreement was. That we had one bill coming in at 107. And I'm already paying an extra one there now. So now I'm getting this bill for 106, which has 2 units attached to it apparently. Even though 106 and a half is paying their own.
Matt, would you be interested in sitting down with Danielle and having her go through
Sure, because I don't think we've ever met in my store. have we?
yeah, that's what I was gonna ask, go through the property and
So this is one building.
between the two of you, you can come up
I
with
have
something.
been in parts of it, I guess, like Lisa's, and I've not obviously been in apartments or.
I'm not trying to get off, trying to get counsel off of
Right.
the thing, because ultimately it's our decision. But I think the first thing you need to do is have a discussion with Danielle, and the two of you can meet. And we can go from there, because obviously relying on what our former village attorney and our former village administrator said, I don't know how I can support that at this point. So I think we need to dive into this some more and see what we can do to best help you out. Best help the village out.
So what am I supposed to do with the bill that's on my taxes right now? It's due tomorrow.
That bill just the late fees.
No, it's
That's
the,
everything.
it's the
Everything,
late fees, penalties, and any bill that was 6 months past due.
So it's got some water usage on it.
It does. So the total amount that was sent to taxes was $3,784. Yes. The total bill for that property right now is 6,000, well, minus, I might not have the most current month, I'm trying to remember the date on this. Is $6,209.61. Of that total amount, the penalty is $1,257.73. That's the penalty and interest, but that's part of that 6,200. And not, again, not all of that was sent to taxes because our ordinance specifically states it has to be 6 months or older to go on the tax roll.
What are your thoughts, Danielle, about Jerry's suggestion as well as we're standing from a financial point and the tax deadline?
I don't.
Anything else you want to answer while you're at it?
I don't disagree with what Jerry's saying. My concern for Matt would only be if you guys are going to do anything, we need to notify, if with the tax part, we need to notify the county by tomorrow morning, and they're really making an exception to remove that. So that would be my only thing. Otherwise, he will need to pay the whole thing. And I'm not saying that's what you should do, just I would keep that in mind that if we go past tomorrow, he will be required or to pay, or he'll be late on his tax bill, which is due the 14th.
Well, I specifically remember talking to Matt personally about this issue, and he was told to not pay the bills. So I think any late fees should not be forwarded on to him. And I know that personally through that agreement that was discussed. I don't think that's right because they were trying to figure it out. They were trying to get a solid answer. And shame on us, shame on our former administrator, shame on our former attorney for not giving him a solid answer. But I never had a solid answer on quote, what constituted a unit. I've been trying for 3 years to figure this out.
And I would not fully disagree with Mike up until February of 2022 when I did send a formal answer.
A question. I'm not sure how to word it now. So I'm going to use the names of the stores, Decades.
Yes.
What's the number there?
109.
And so there's a bill for 109.
No, it comes at an extra, what is it, monthly service charge on 107.
And so 107 is part of what you got at the mall. Because Decades is separate from the mall.
I own a percentage of Decades. I own a percentage of Blissfield.
So I have it different. See, this is where that conversation would be nice because according to all of the investigating I did, 106 Lane Street has 2 minimum fees, one for Lane Street Emporiums, which I think is now, I don't know, it might be that. And then the other one is for Decades, 109. And then it also includes the usage for 106 and a half. And then 106 and a half is only billed their availability fee, and that goes directly to the renter.
So why wasn't the usage put on that?
Because it doesn't have a separate meter.
It is the only meter up there that is the usage. It's always done that way, but nobody seems to get that right.
All right, for the sake of moving this on,
Yeah.
this is not gonna get decided tonight. We cannot penalize him $4,000 in taxes to one. We've got to do something about this. So I'm in favor of at least postponing it until the next. And Matt, I'm not guaranteeing you're not gonna have to pay it, but the best we could probably do is 6 months of reprieve here. Because I think mistakes have been made on both sides. So Danielle, you're gonna have to get with Matt. We're gonna have to unwind all these accounts. We're gonna have to come to some conclusion here. But at this point, I'm ready to make a motion that we suspend the tax billing for $3,784.28 until this conundrum can be, I don't know, a conclusion can be can be found, I guess. I don't even know what I'm trying to say here, but that's my motion. I'm not as confused as the next person on this. I'm trying to unwind it on paper. It's not making sense. Barb's asking questions. It's not making any further sense. So
Well,
I do
want to mention this comment about the amount that you're stating, the 3784. I'm not quite understanding what this 3784 is for. Is that,
use penalties and
that's the
interest
whole kit?
that is greater than 6 months in arrears.
Is this is the greater than 6 months?
Yes.
This total is, okay.
6209 is the total,
And this is what's in-
3784 is the 6 months that
Thank
can
you.
be applied to
Yep,
taxes.
okay. Gotcha.
But that includes some minimum and usage fees.
Yeah, that's correct.
The 3784 does.
Can I repeat the motion to make sure I have?
You can
I'm so sorry.
restate it, and I'll
Okay.
concur.
So you are making a motion to suspend the tax billing of $3,784.28 until a conclusion can be provided.
And let's say not to exceed the next tax date. Does that make sense?
No, I hear you, but why would you go to the next tax date, next September? Or next October, you were stating? You're referring to? For September 14th?
When are taxes due?
Tomorrow.
For summer.
For summer,
That's the
so.
summer.
But we only have tax once a year.
Oh,
That's
it's
right.
all right, so, okay, so.
Right, so that's that gets a full year, maybe not comfortable with full year. 6 months.
Yeah, it's, okay, so for 3 months, and if we don't have a conclusion in 3 months, we'll extend it from there. How about that? At least this gives us 3 months to have a look at it, have DPW come in, Danielle come in, Matt to present
Yeah,
his case.
that sounds good.
Okay. Okay, not to surpass 3 months.
90 days.
Except we can,
90 days.
And 2 hours and 6 minutes.
Right,
That's what I figured.
yeah, so a couple things.
okay,
We do taxes once a year.
that's right.
So we can't put them on the tax roll again until next year. We'd have to evaluate and we would have to follow our ordinance of anything older than 6 months, whatever. Hopefully we've got it resolved at that time. So the 90 days, we can look at it, but I can't do anything with it, nor can Brendan. The second question, I don't know, is can we, if you remove it, can you put it back on the tax roll? And I think once you remove it, I think it becomes ineligible to go back to the tax roll. So if you remove it, you're removing it.
The tax, I have said it before, we can see that these taxes may not be looking at this tax bill. It may be next year's tax bill. So you can go a whole another year. But there's more penalties against this accrual. Because I would have to have a whole time, Chris, I think that.
When there's an option.
There's a fifth option, is that what you're saying?
I believe there is. The amount that you talked about, $3,784.28, it includes some use. That can be factored out. And then what you'd be left with are penalties, late fees and interest. Up to the February 16th, 2022 letter, the notice. That seems to me to be, if first of all, you're under no obligation to do anything. That's as much of as chaotic as this is, you're not obligated to do anything. It seems equitable to me to forgive the penalties, late fees, and interests up to the date of that notice. That, and someone said, I can't remember, maybe Mike, he was told that he didn't have to pay it or he shouldn't pay it. As of February 16th, 2022, he was told to pay it. Now, if he incurred penalties, late fees, and interest because he was specifically told not to pay, that I think is inequitable. But there's still the issue of the water that he received, the service that he literally received and used.
So you got the product.
I have no idea how to back that out. Don't get me. But that seems fair to me.
Well, now to drag it out, we look at the history register based on Friday, August 12th. Is there a way for you to go back to February and look at the history register? And it's broken down by usage, billing, their usage, interest and penalty.
Yeah, I'd have to, that's what I was telling Phil, I'd have to run a report in BSNA, but I can set whatever parameters, so I can go in, because this, if you look at the history register, like it gives you the totals through August 1st, I would have to just go set that back to February, pull whatever those numbers are. And I was actually gonna try to do that, but I don't have utility billing on this laptop, I'm sorry, so I can't pull that.
There's a question about the received bills.
I think our attorneys stand to forgive the late charges and just bill for the usage.
Up to,
That's what I'm hearing.
up to February 16th, up to the date of notice. Yes, that's correct.
Can you guys figure that out in the morning or no? Is that a challenge?
No, I can figure it out pretty quickly, it's just a matter of having that program to pull the report.
From that date, February to today.
Right, well, I go right backwards from the beginning of this to that February date.
And that may not satisfy you to the extent that you want that, because I'm just as frustrated with you as well on determining what the heck a unit is and how we're gonna determine these and how we're gonna bill for them. That's why I want John Holland here, so that we can sit down and say, you're setting these rates based on your number of meters and the size of the meter. So help us determine how to move forward on that and set more accurate rates. It's gonna be a give and take, because if we don't charge the ready to serve for the current quote units that we already are, well, then that backs us up on how much we're recovering. So we pass that on again to the other regular, say, meter user, average residential unit in town. So again, it's definitely gonna be some discussion, but I would like an accurate description of how we need to bill and what's the best way to move forward, because like you said, it's inaccurate now, and it's a I said versus he said versus she said, so. Well, James didn't get a second, right?
Well, I don't know what the motion is.
I don't think I had it completely.
I had what I initially typed out and then nothing about the tax portion yet.
Okay, so if you figure it out, then you can contact the county and say, okay, this is the new rate that he is being billed as late tax, or what needs to go on the tax roll.
Yes, I can run the report and whatever the penalties that because I'll have to do a couple different, depending, I guess, how you guys do this, but what I'm hearing you say is that all penalties and interest until February of 22 will be waived or removed. Only a portion of those were sent to the taxes. So what I would have to do is I'll figure out that portion that was sent to taxes, notify the county to remove that. The other portion would be just a matter of us removing it and updating Matt's bill and providing, because again, a portion's not been sent to the tax roll.
I would say up to March, because we back
I would do through the reading of February, yeah, that's how I would do it, that seems the most fair, right?
And again, that may not satisfy you, but it's something I'll continue keeping an eye on too, because I want an answer as well. So I just want people to be
I have a
billed
letter
fairly.
that stated that you thought that was being properly billed. It didn't say that's what it was gonna be, because we were still arguing on that. I had the other agreement that I wasn't supposed to be paying it.
But there is no agreement. It's a verbal agreement. There is no written and there's no signature for an agreement. I hear
Verbal
you.
contracts stand up.
No,
for
no. We're, there, that's not what we see there is not gonna be, is not representative. It's not. I mean, I think that for the village trustees council to honestly even consider this is a wonderful thing. Because it doesn't, I mean, by the ordinance, and I'm just going strictly by black and white, by the ordinance, this does not even have to be discussed. And that's what Phil was saying. It is still a decision that needs, that can be made.
And I would guarantee it would not open tomorrow if that happens.
And that would be a choice of yours to do, Matt, and it sounds like you're almost threatening the council. That if
I'm just telling you
that
what
you have
happened.
to understand, it's kind of what it's sounding like. If
You're
we don't,
telling me that in
if
6
we don't
months.
agree with what you want to do, you're going to close the shops, the businesses. That's not what this council is doing here. We are trying to work with you. We are. That's how I see it.
But when you figure out what a unit is, because I'm getting.
And that discussion has been being held for approximately the last hour of what a
Right.
unit is in the discussion, and it's time to
That's
go
the
on.
problem.
Well, I won't disagree, it's not a problem, but I'm hearing from our administrator that we're not the only administration municipality that has this issue. And we've got a plan, and it might not be exactly what you're liking, but it is something that the council is trying to work with you. So please don't threaten to close a bill or a business because we're not rolling with what Matt Casper wants. That's not fair.
So we're gonna restate whatever motion you started or?
I believe.
No,
I don't have one at this point, no.
I still have it.
Oh, no, okay. I thought we were.
So it's not a
We can start out.
Well, you've got a motion on the floor then that needs a second.
But we
Restate the motion again.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, if you wanna run real quick, that's, I guess that's up to you guys, do you need us to do that? I mean, we can,
If this is gonna come to any conclusion tonight, it's probably the best thing to do.
sure.
So what he's gonna do is find out how much he would owe from March to now. What's he going to do?
well, I guess that's where, I'm hearing penalties and fees, but
Right.
that, I guess, again, that's, I'm
I'm
not against running the report, I'd like to know what you guys wanna do, I don't wanna run a, because, I mean, we could run multiple
penalties and
reports.
fees.
Yes, I understand that. I think you take out the penalties, not the February. That's what it's saying. Okay, but here's the problem. I can give you that number. But the tax bill is up to December 2021. That is what the assessed citizens. So I can run you a report that show what the penalties are. That's it's gonna have to do some reading wrong because I can only assess December 2021 on taxes. This is not wrong. Because I have to report everything to the county, right? So.
All right, go ahead. We're gonna move on and when you bring that report back, we'll.
Well, if we're gonna move on,
Is there still a motion on the floor or not?
there was no second, so the motion is not on the board, right?
Going to action item number 4, appointment full-time police officer.
I guess before making a motion, I'd like just a clarification on what the recommendation is, because we've got, I believe it's probably what Chief wrote. Considering Mr. Myers at the top wage of police officer based on his history, and then the recommended motion on at the bottom is the starting wage. So I guess, what are your recommendations?
Might just be a typo from. We are recommending top pay. The 2575.
Well, I appreciate that. And I will,
27, 25?
25.
2570.
Okay, 25.
Okay, I'll move that council authorize and offer employment to Mr. Glenn Myers for the position of police officer with the Blissfield Police Department contingent upon the successful completion of pre-employment physical, psychological examination at the starting wage of $25.75 an hour and benefits in accordance with the 2021-22 village pay scale.
I'll support that. There's a motion and support. Call roll on that motion as presented, please.
Tim,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Barb, yes, Jerry,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes. And action item number 5, approve wastewater treatment plant upgrade payment.
Randy?
I think Denise is on. Yeah, questions for her, but this is just our run-of-the-mill monthly payment for everything that's been done.
See, this is just a regular payment. This isn't any special request. correct? I'll move to approve contractors pay app number 18 in the amount of $629,311.89. And the engineer's invoices in the amount of $33,541.13 for a total payment of $662,853.02 in connection with the Village of Blissfield wastewater treatment plant project upgrade, and authorize the village administrator to execute all documents related to this payment.
I'll support.
We have a motion and a support. Can you call the roll on that as presented?
Jerry,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Barb, yes, Gwen,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes. That motion carried. Action item 6, approve change order wastewater treatment plant. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So these are kind of 3 separate change orders, all rolled into one. There was 2 water main breaks. The reroute of an 8-inch line, and that entailed a couple different things. Swapping the rotation for a valve, rotating that, a temporary sludge wasting line, and the replacement of about 40 feet of 8-inch ductile. The auto dialer portion is an auto dialer for basically all of the new equipment going in.
Auto dialer obviously makes sense. That's really, the reroute the 8-inch line, is that something in the building or in the ground? Because if it's in the building, we should have planned for that, and that was missed by engineering. If it was on the ground, then there's a little difference to that.
So the reroute of the 8-inch line, that involved, there was about 40 feet outside underground that they had to replace. When they dug it up, They found multiple cracks through it. Replace it. The temporary sludge wasting line was in the building. And then there was a spool piece with a valve on it that got rotated. Both of those are kind of a touchy subject, I guess.
What makes it touchy?
I think it was more of a within the scope of work kind of thing. They have to continue maintenance and flow. Both of those are to follow that were required. In the broken water lines are more of just that's more of a
What broke them? Them digging?
I was wondering the same thing, Mike.
you can argue it both ways, whether they were responsible as the reason they broke, or just because they're 70-year-old water lines. You can or argue the semantics either way all day. I don't think you can get anywhere.
Well, we know a broken water line when a water line breaks anywhere else in town. So obviously, I mean, it wasn't flooding the plant, it wasn't popping out of the ground before they were in there digging, right?
Yeah.
In rerouting, you're not explaining that very well. Is that something outside the building or?
Those are both in the building. So they had to remove a bunch of existing in order to install a new pump. In order for me to be able to continue wasting for that month or so that everything was torn apart, they had to rotate a spool piece with a valve on it to put the valve against the wall. And they had to do maybe 6 feet and a handful of fittings.
So that's part of the cutover process between the whole plant. Technically, no.
That was just in order for them to install the pump. From the explanation that I was given, it was the reason that they're doing a change order on it is because they're trying to say that we dictated in their schedule and we did it. Though it had to follow our sludge hauling. That tank was only empty twice a year.
Did they fix the water lines then? They just went ahead and fixed it?
Yeah, they dug them up. I mean, we gave them, the first one was 4 broken bolts. We gave them all the bolts. The second one was a split in the pipe. We provided the plant, and then they purchased one and gave it back to the village, and then billed us for a change order. So it's either way.
Denise, are you available?
Yes, I am.
Can you assist Randy and maybe elaborate about this rerouting and these what's going on or what went on with the leaks as well?
Yeah, the broken water lines was, they didn't like hit it with their excavator. It wasn't anything like that. When they were making an excavation, it pretty much fell apart. And our inspector, our RPR out there, agreed that it was just the old line that, was falling apart, because he actually recommended, and we talked about it in our field meeting and a progress meeting, he recommended that we held on to these, waiting for them to kind of expose another bunch of it to see if it was something that we needed to discuss replacing it all, just replacing it because it needed it. They did not feel that it needed to on the remainder of it, but he felt that it was just like the bolts disintegrated, and once the pressure of the surrounding earth was removed from it, it just sprung leaks in their excavations.
And how about this rerouting?
I guess the rerouting, that's where I would need to look into it further. Yes, they are claiming it was because it was out of sequence, but I thought that it was because one of your pumps went down, so they had to replace the pump earlier than their sequence, which is why it caused some of the things that they were doing with the reroute and changing the valve so that it could be used differently.
And Danielle, what are your thoughts about all 3 of these?
The auto dialer, I would support Randy in needing that one, but it sounds like you guys are good on that. The broken water lines, I wasn't there, I don't know, so I have to defer to the engineers on that. I do know we have old aging infrastructure throughout our community. I also think that a heavy excavator digging near an old line probably did cause it to break. Now, it could have been us as well. I do agree with Randy. I think you could go either way on that one, and the way this project is going, to me, a $6,972 change order is not the battle we want to choose to fight. And trust me, there's battles coming. And then the rerouting the 8-inch water line, I don't know enough about that one. Randy's told me a little bit about that and it being a scheduling thing. I do know that we last fall had some issue or concerns where we had emptied sludge, they weren't ready or didn't get ready, and that they were told ahead of time. But again, I just don't know enough to speak to that and give you guys good information. Thank you.
So the reroute of the 8-inch line was something that was done last fall. It was sent and it went back and forth for a while. I know Ken had given something to Steve, basically telling him that it was maintenance and flow. Steve agreed. And that was the last I heard of it up until the last week or two. This all has to do with the old piston pump that was in the lower building, not the RAS pump that went down 3 weeks ago. But then we had to install one of the pumps out of their sequence to get us by. Those are separate.
Thanks, Randy.
Okay, well, if we're looking at the breakdown of the water lines, and I'm not trying to nickel and dime on this, but you know, much like James alluded to, we gotta keep an eye on this crap. And they're billing us an excavator and a loader at $1,500 and $975 for one day. But they were already out there, they already opened up the pit, correct? I mean, they already exposed all that stuff. Why are they billing us that when they're opening that hole with that set excavator, filling with that set loader? You see my point?
I see.
They're double dipping us on that equipment decision, when that equipment's already being used that day, digging out, opening up that trench.
The first one I was there for, once it started leaking, they had to dig up the main itself. The second one I wasn't there for. I was on vacation at the time, so how that one went, I don't know, but I know the first one, they had it exposed in like 2 hours. So yeah, I would say that we're kind of getting hosed on.
Because we paid for that equipment to be installed, and that quote included the excavator and the loader for that day to open up that trench and do the work that they did. So if it took them 2 hours to dig the rest of that main up, to isolate it and fix it and repair it and whatnot, it sure as heck didn't charge, or didn't cost a day's worth of work, correct? And they're billing us one day for each excavator and the loader on this breakdown.
Denise, do you guys track your time when they're working on that?
We do, and we actually got them to reduce it to the 5 hours that they put on there. I guess I didn't catch that it was we looked at the labor for their laborers. I guess I didn't catch that the equipment was done for the full 8 hours and not for the 5 that we agreed to, because they originally had billed full days. And so we made them reduce their hours on that. So I can go back to that and we can revise that for sure.
Does that mean we put that on the next meeting then?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I can do it either way. I mean, if you guys want to approve the auto dialer and only that one, if you're still questioning the reroute of the 8-inch line as well, I can, if you just approve that, I can redo the cover page to only include that amount, whatever you guys decide. And then, you know, the next time we can do the ones you just have questions on. Whatever is easiest for you guys is fine.
I see the auto dialer myself.
Yeah. But I guess Denise, re-clarify the rerouting of the 8-inch line, then. Is that something that?
Well, yeah, I guess that's the one I need to find. I guess Randy and we aren't talking about the same, the same situation of what we're describing. So I guess I need to get, for sure on that one, what's going on, because we aren't talking about the same piping and such. So I would suggest I get more information on that and be very clear on that for the next time.
So I would not approve anything more than the auto dialer at this point.
We go with option 7. and authorize, I guess, change order 15 amended for option 7 only for $7,063.85 for the auto dialer.
Support. We have a motion and a support. Can you call the roll for that motion as presented?
Claire,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes, that motion carried. Action item 7, approve engineer's task order amendment regarding wastewater treatment plant upgrade project.
So same question, obviously, the project got delayed. So were there days that engineering didn't need to be out there, just twiddling thumbs while the work wasn't being done? I just don't understand why. Again, I can see a little bit of an amount, but this seems extravagant because the amendment reads additional services to be performed by the engineer. But technically, those services just come with the day-to-day construction improvements. And if nothing is done during a specific day or a week or whatever, then those hours just get bumped, passed along right down the line until the project's completed.
So when there was no activity on site, the engineers did not show up. And when there was low progress and there was activity happening, but nothing that they needed to check, they did go down to part-time. And Denise did talk to both Randy and I about this, and we both approved it. And one of our big thing was when something big was going on or there was an inspection, they'd be there. But if they were just repairing things, that they didn't need to help reduce that. So I know that, and I would defer to Denise on the specifics of where this amount comes from, but I do know that the engineers did try to reduce that a little bit. I do agree this does seem high, but, and I get the day-to-day thing, but when a project is extended, it is very standard that the engineer's cost increases with that because you're looking at total project time. So when they quoted us, they said this project is going to take 180 days, and this is our estimated cost for working those 180 days. And then when it actually takes 250, that additional days is not covered. And again, I would defer to Denise on the specifics of how they arrived to this amount.
I just want to make sure this is on our radar when it comes time to settle the bill. That we are not being held responsible for the delays of the construction company. I agree that the engineers were there, they need to be paid, but that's not our full cost to set.
When we talk to the contractor and they request additional money, I agree this should be a topic of conversation. I also do want to be very clear that if council approves this, it will come from our funding and not from the USDA loan.
Will a portion of it come from the USDA?
It will not. And our budget can support this. I want to make sure that you guys understand that.
But we had budgeted money out of the sewer fund. $40,000.
I had put 40,000 for engineering, which obviously is not sufficient, so there would be already, we would have to amend the budget.
For the additional 19.
Yes, yeah. But I did anticipate there would be some additional cost with the extended time. I just did not know the amount.
And this should not occur yet.
ideally, we finish the project and it should not,
Ideally.
yes.
That's for fiscal year 21-22, correct?
This would, no, this is
It's for next year's
20, yes.
fiscal. So then any quote projects you had planned on doing don't happen because we expended all of them.
No, we still are moving forward with our projects. That's what in the next budget fiscal year where this would be expended, we have that 40,000 we would need to take from our fund balance. But if you guys remember, we were going to have after projects a 6-month reserve. So we have the ability to do this, but again, we can't just, I'm not saying we should not put some thought into this. It is a big change, but I do agree that the engineers should be compensated something because of that additional time. And we're going into the most critical part of the project where systems are going to start coming up online, and we need to have them there to make sure that they're built to spec and they're functioning the way that they should be.
So your recommendation, of course, was to go with this full run.
Yeah, and I mean, if you guys are concerned about the amount, I don't think it would be unfair to have to submit a breakdown or give us reasoning as to where that amount came from, because I believe the only thing I received is just the paper with that total amount. So if you guys are wanting clarification, I think that's more than fair, but I do think they should get something moving forward.
How about, once we see that paperwork,
Denise, is that something that you could fairly provide?
Oh, yeah, I actually already have that. It literally is full-time it's just Ken McGowan's time for being an RPR out there. So 40 hours a week, plus he gets his travel mileage to get up there. That's strictly what that is per month through January. So that I can very easily, it's based on his hourly rate that would be had been in our contract.
out of curiosity, what's his hourly rate?
$79 or $79.50. I guess I'm not sure since this one is so old where it was at, but it should be $79.
Thank you.
But I can definitely send that, I can get that to Danielle.
We weren't planning on paying that the next fiscal year anyway, so.
It wouldn't be paid until as it's earned, so we pay them for the time they're actually there.
Right, and I mean, if for some reason they would get done early, which I kind of say that sarcastically, but we only bill what we actually use. What the monthly bills that you guys approve for Pogemeyer is literally Ken's time out there. So you could probably average those over the last 6 months and that we should be right around that number.
But you said that was based on 40 hours a week, is that correct?
It's based on literally what he's out there, but I think he's pretty much out there 40 hours a week, yes.
So I move to approve the engineer's amendment, owner engineer agreement for wastewater treatment plant upgrade project in the amount of $59,940. Authorize the village administrator to execute all documents related to the amendment on behalf of the governing body.
Moved and supported to approve engineer's amendment to owner engineer agreement wastewater treatment plant upgrade project for $59,940 and authorize village administrator to execute all documents related to amendment on behalf of the governing body. Any other comments or questions? That you can call the roll, Lisa.
Jerry,
Yes.
Barb? Yes. Tim,
Yes.
Gwen,
No,
Mike,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes, that motion carried.
I just want to stipulate, I just would like to have that paper in hand. That's why I'm saying no. So once the paperwork's there, I'm sure it'll be just fine. And I'll get that to you guys.
Action item A, reject wastewater treatment plant exterior doors.
Move to reject all bids for this wastewater treatment plant exterior doors.
I'll support that.
Moved and supported to reject all bids for Blissfield wastewater wastewater treatment plant, exterior doors. Call the roll, Lisa.
Gwen?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Barb?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes, that motion carried. Bid documents.
Did you want to go back to Matt now, or are you waiting to do that?
Okay, we can go
I don't
back
know
to,
if Matt has
yeah, we can
other
go back.
things he'd like to do this evening.
Yeah.
Okay, so, based on the reports that we pulled, the amount of penalties and interest that would come off of the tax portion would be $594.57.
That's for annual penalties
And interest,
and that comes off the,
and that would come off the tax roll. So we would note that would be the portion we notify the county of.
gotcha. And that can, and that's something that can be done tomorrow morning.
Yes, we just need to do it.
It's
Brandon's probably gonna do it tonight, but she needs it first thing in the morning so that she can get the adjusted bill and we can get that to Matt. So he would still have a portion.
Yes.
If you, this is the motion you guys go with. The portion that the village would take off of the current bill owed is $302.31.
And that village portion represents what?
That represents the portion that was not sent to taxes, so that's from December 29th of 21, I gotta get my years straight, to February 16th of 22.
Both of these amounts are deducted from that $3,700 amount, correct?
No,
No.
so just that $594.57 would be deducted from that tax portion, the 30, whatever.
37 something.
Yes. And the 302 would be deducted from his current village bill for the, which was the total of the 62 something.
Of the village bill, gotcha.
Anyone want to make a motion?
I should have some numbers. What do you think?
Yeah, numbers, total numbers. So,
You want the total number? of
Yeah,
those?
we should be real clear what numbers we're talking about.
So like what's on the taxes or the total of those two numbers I gave you?
so
What he's expected to pay for what?
but are we gonna have them in both, in a motion, both amounts, or do we need separate motion?
Okay, so his tax bill was $3,784.28. If we deduct penalties and interest only of $594.57, the tax portion would be $3,189.71. Okay. And I gotta do math, bear with me here for the other portion.
Well, I'm not. Oh, you're right.
I check, I did check. So then that would be, is to get the other one, it'd be the $6,209.61. This is for August 12th, by the way, Matt, so I think you've got one bill filing now. We would deduct the portion that was sent to taxes of the $3,784.28. And then we would deduct the penalties and interest of $302.31. So then his village payment amount due after the tax portion being deducted is $2,123.02. But he'd be paying them into tax payment, village payment.
and the 21-23 is the village payment.
Right, and that's usage and penalties and interest after that February 16, 22 date.
Now do you want to put it in a motion?
I think I'm still in favor of Danielle walking through all of his businesses before we make a decision on this.
I don't think we have customer sales.
We'd have to wait.
You'd have to remove it from the tax roll, to give him, I shouldn't say you'd have to.
Is that what you're doing?
If you're to give us more time to determine, you would need to, I think, take that off. I would work with him, but regardless of what you guys are going to do, I was going to reach out to Matt and see if we can hopefully work on this and come up with some resolution or at least present to you guys what we found.
So I feel like in fairness to Matt, that I would waive it because we haven't taken care of it up to this point. That's the way I feel.
I'm gonna start with you say wait it, what is it? That you're right, wait.
The $3,189.
That's what I want to know.
That's 3784.28.
Well, I guess we have 37.
And then we cannot add that to future taxes.
Brandon, can we put that on next year's taxes if we remove it this year? Do you know?
All I know is that, I can pay anything up to December of this year, in May. So if he doesn't pay that person, then penalties and interest that continue to accrue, may kick him off, and they continue. And if he doesn't make any payment, whatever the balance is at December 31st, December 25th, 2022, has to be reported to the county by May 25th.
Can we just make a motion to remove both? No, go ahead. Could we just make a motion to remove both penalties and interest from the two tax statements, combined 896.88, is that right?
Yeah, if that's what you guys choose to do, yes.
I mean, that would make sense, and I still hate the whole unit discussion, which could be settled at a later date, but at least that helps them out for now.
I'll support that, but I still want to see Danielle and Matt get together and go through the businesses. It needs to be done.
Well, I think she said that. She's gonna do it regardless.
All right, then we have a motion to
Mike, move that we deduct the penalties and interest from this year's tax bills, I guess. Penalties and interest grand total $896.88. Based on the previous discussions with the village, former village administrator and former village attorney.
Okay, you guys say it, okay, I have a question on that.
Go ahead, Lisa.
If it's my understanding, the tax bill penalties and interest for that were applied were just $594.56, not the 800 and something.
He's combining the total penalties and interest to be waived. We will deduct the 594 from, so he said, he just didn't break it out. He just said total amount to be waived, and then Brandon and I will do the two separate deductions.
Thank you.
Right, so the total would be
I'm confused now.
$896.88.
How much are we gonna deduct or wait?
$896.88.
So he'll still have the 3,100 and the 2,100?
He would, based on that motion, yes.
I won't support that. I was wanting to deduct those two numbers.
The whole amount,
Yes, all of it.
but the motion on the floor.
But the water usage, the penalties and interest.
We have a motion, a second though. Right, Danielle?
You had a motion, I don't know if I heard a second.
I will make a second motion.
Okay, sorry, I was trying to make sure I got the motion correct. So,
Yeah,
yes. you can have a motion.
as hard as this is to swallow as council, I think we need to hit the pause here. This is either setting precedent or this is opening a can of worms until we get this resolved. Something happened. Failures on both sides. I agree, Matt did not respond in time. I agree, verbal communications were promised. All that stuff happens, has happened. We know it to be true. Something happened here, something got missed. I don't care who's responsible, let's just figure it out before we vote to penalize a guy $3,200 tomorrow. Hit the pause. Matt's been in business a long time. If he owes the bill, I believe he's gonna pay the bill. That's just my belief, though. So I'm not in favor of this. I'd be in favor of pausing the whole thing.
But there are repercussions to pause.
I get there's also repercussions to that
There's
fact,
gonna be repercussions.
but
to
there's
that.
repercussions to penalizing someone, you know.
What are the let's clarify the repercussions, because
Well, the repercussions are Matt sues us in court. Because we couldn't hit the pause button here tonight.
But I'm-
That's really what it's gonna come to.
So that's what I was gonna, the repercussion, if you choose to remove the full 3784 off of the taxes right now, it would be a couple repercussions possible. One, we've figured out and Matt pays it, we're done, we're finished. Two, Matt doesn't pay it and we assess it to taxes at a future tax roll date. Which, and that would include penalties and interest.
it's the staff paid.
Correct,
And
pending any further action from you guys, because right now you're just saying, potentially, you're postponing the payment. Matt and I get together, bring back that information, and then you decide if there's any fee reduction, waiver, or anything. So we're not gonna collect that money now, we collect it later, pending any further motion from you guys.
I just think he's got a strong enough case for us to listen to it in whole. Right now, I think we're getting a lot of the information, we're not getting all of it. Sorry to drag it out even further, but.
Danielle, what's our motion on the table?
Remove the penalties and interest of $896.88 based on previous conversations with the previous administrator and attorney.
Thank you.
And I stated that correctly, right, Mike? So, a couple things, you guys have a first and a second, so unless there's a friendly amendment and a friendly second, you have a motion on the floor that you can vote on. If that passes, that's what we go with. If it fails, you can entertain another motion and then passes or fails, and then we'll go from there, just so you guys know from this point how to proceed.
Can you call the roll on that motion?
Mike,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Tim,
No.
James,
No.
Jerry,
No.
Bob,
Yes. The motion carried. We're on to action item 10, approved printer contract.
I think we're actually on insurance renewal.
Oh, yeah, I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
we're bouncing you around.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's okay. Approved insurance renewal 2022-23.
So I did get an insurance renewal quote from Michigan Municipal Liability and Property Pool, who we have been with since 2006. And then we also were referred by another local manager in Lenawee County, BHS Insurance, and met with Chris with BHS, who provided a proposal as well. Both are included in the packet, and then I did give you guys copies of the VHS one as well, to see if Chris had printed extras. I guess before I get into it too much, both companies, I think, seem absolutely capable of doing this. Chris was great to work with just on the proposal portion. In my time with the village, I've had no issues with MML. In fact, I would say they far exceeded customer service standards. Anytime I've had questions, which has been frequently, they've responded quickly and been very helpful. So I think for me, it really comes down to a cost thing, and they're really close. In fact, MML is about $50 higher after the dividend. But I do want to talk to you guys a little bit, because ultimately this is your decision, and I did notify and invite both Chris with BHS and James with MML to attend tonight. And I don't believe either did. I know James could not for sure. But MML, I do think has the way that they send their insurance renewal to us is a little bit different and hard to follow. And I did talk to James about this, and he said that that's set by us. So it's just a matter of staff sitting down with him and going through everything. We do have a lower deductible with them. And then we also have our workers' comp covered through them, which is outside of this policy. It's a separate policy that renews in July. But Chris did propose a higher coverage rate. They both do the same thing with umbrella coverage. So what that means is that they insure the village, and I'm just gonna, for example, let's say $30 million. And let's say a tornado goes through town, and takes out the DPW building, which was valued at 1.8 million, but it ends up costing us 2.7 to rebuild it. We would have that covered because it's under that umbrella of the 30 million. So the only time we would ever have an issue is if we lost every single property and it exceeded that 30 million. And that's again with both insurance providers. If we choose not to renew with MML, we would not get our dividend check of the $6,300 odd. VHS does do dividend checks. You would get after 1 year of being a member with them. So then next year, if we renewed with them, we'd then be eligible to get whatever the dividend at that time is. And it does vary year to year. So there's not a way for us to know that right now. VHS did quote us again a little bit higher coverage, that umbrella coverage. They also do have a grant program that you're eligible for after 1 year of being in their program, which is it's up to $5,000 for like risk reduction type of projects. But other than that, if you guys have questions, let me know. I really, this was kind of hard for me. I went with MFL as my recommendation solely because it's not broken. The cost was pretty close to each other and they've been doing really well. But again, if you guys choose to go with VHS, I think they would do a wonderful job for the village.
I'll make a motion to renew the Michigan Municipal League liability and property pool for the Village of Blissfield liability and property insurance for the year 22-23 in the amount of $63,911. Support.
Moved and supported to renew Michigan Municipal League liability pool, property pool for the Village of Blissfield liability property insurance for the year 2022-23 in the amount of $63,911. We'll call the roll.
Barb? Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Gwen. Yes. Bob,
Yes, that motion carried. Now on to action item 10, approved printer contract.
I move to approve the applied imaging for copier services within the Village of Blissfield and authorize the village administrator to execute all documents related to this contract service.
support.
Moved and supported. Yeah,
Printer.
we'll make it and then you can discuss it real quick.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I would like to change my recommendation. Okay, I'm really sorry, and I struggled with this. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. they all sent over their prices so different. And I was trying to compare apples to apples for you guys, because I wanted to say each person costs X amount of dollars per month. What's in there, 2 are Ricoh, 1 is a Sharp printer, so all printers are high quality. And what I presented to you, I had talked to Applied Imaging, who sent that monthly cost, but that's not their true monthly cost. So Perry ProTech would actually be the lowest at the monthly cost of $459.79, where Applied would actually be $558.07, and that is my mistake. So I would like to recommend Perry ProTech as the lowest proposal. And I am, again, so sorry.
What brand was that one?
That is a Ricoh. So it's cheaper right now. On our current lease, we pay $538.51 a month, and it's a Xerox, and it's terrible. This service also will cover our desktop printers. So if that breaks or something, it'll be included in that contract price.
So I will amend my original motion. Move to approve Perry ProTech
Thank you, so sorry.
copier services.
And I will support with Perry ProTech.
Friendly amendment, there's a motion to approve Perry ProTech copy services within the village of Blissfield. Authorize village administrator to execute all documents related to contract. You can call the roll.
Hold on, just making sure it's 458 and 60.
For the Perry ProTech cost is $459.79 a month.
Because that's different than what we have here. By pennies, but.
So they just buy out for the contract, they're gonna take care of it.
Yeah, so they will buy out, so we'll work with them on timing and scheduling, because I'll order the new printer. So we won't terminate our current contract until the new printer is ready, otherwise we'll really be hurting at the office. And then they'll issue us a check to buy out that contract, and we'll send that check out and get that terminated, the new copier will come in, and then we'll work with them and moving forward.
They don't have a hidden fee to pay those contracts.
No, this cost includes paying that contract off.
Which is nice because your financial impact is technically lower than what we're.
For a
paying.
better
So, I mean, it's
quality
not
machine.
369, it's technically -1, whatever, considering it's.
Or you can call the roll.
Gwen,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Barb, yes, Bob,
Yes, and motion carried. On to approve village hall police department server replacement purchase.
I'll make a motion to approve purchase of the police and village server from IT Right in the amount of $16,105.80.
I'll support. Moving supported to approve the purchase of Blissfield for police village server from IT Right, amount of $16,105.08. Can you call the roll, Lisa?
James,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Barb, yes, Gwen,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes. That motion carried. Action item 12, resolution liquor license application.
I'll move to approve the resolution recommending approval of the special license application for Fuel Ties Brunch and Bingo event to be held downtown Blissfield on November the 13th, 2022.
Support.
Yeah,
What's the address?
Mike.
It'll be downtown in the tent on Main
Oh,
Street
okay, on Main
itself.
Street, okay.
Do you want me to count Mike for that, Jerry? Or do you-
That's where I heard it from first. I don't even
Okay.
get down that way.
Mike seconded.
Doesn't matter, does it?
we have a motion in a second. Can you call the roll on that motion as presented, Lisa?
Tim,
No.
Jerry,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Barb, yes, Gwen,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes, and motion carries. On to reports, administrator, if any questions for Danielle?
Yeah, just regarding the ARPA, not to drag this out obviously, but I mean, I think we really need to be firm that they not reopen that. I think everybody had equal opportunities to do that. You know, that's our fair share of, you know, that expenditures. They got their butts handed in with the Phoenix project, so they should know that, you know, the municipalities are struggling, but we also applied for that because that should be part of our fair share to apply for it. Sorry if the others didn't. Secondly, real quick, we need to repeal the community services director position because we don't technically have that, right? Because it's broken back into Parks and Rec and media director and everything else. It's kind of
Ordinance.
yeah. We should look into that. And then the streetlights, I think I counted 3 or 4 just coming in town down 223. If we get those, get with consumers, because those LEDs were supposed to last longer, be cheaper, so it's a safety issue that needs to be taken care of.
Anything else for Danielle?
I know the idea is to go ahead and bring to council, I believe Danielle, on the 26th, the a name perhaps for the position that is open. Are you going to be doing something similar as you did with the last time for the position, bringing people into the office? How are you guys handling that this around?
So the interview panel did complete 13 interviews last Wednesday and Thursday. We are going to do a second interview here at the village office, which will be similar. It'll be very informal. Not so much question and answer, but just having an open dialogue. And then it is my intention to bring to you guys a recommendation from the committee on the 26th.
Are all 13 people coming in for that second interview?
No, they are not.
Okay, and nobody knows the names except you folks in the office, correct?
I have not released the names,
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
other than the interview panel,
Right.
obviously.
Sounds great, thank you.
Police department, any questions for the chief?
No, is he there? Oh, I couldn't see him right from Mike, I'm so sorry. Mike's right there in your right. Hey, I really appreciated that PowerPoint that you sent. I really did, I watched it. That was very interesting.
Excited to learn.
Thank you, excited, yes, I thought that was very interesting. And kudos to our officer, I know he's no longer here, but kudos that the training went through. It was very, very interesting. I'm sure the actual situation was even more interesting.
Somewhat typical.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
As you saw in the initial couple slides.
Yeah.
The training doesn't train the officers to give a clinical diagnosis. We're simply training them to recognize possible symptoms because we're not doctors.
Right.
So we're simply looking at, okay, are we seeing things that might fit the bill for excited delirium? If we are, what it does, it tells the officer, recognize this is a medical emergency so that we don't end up in a use of force situation unnecessarily.
Understand.
Which is, that's the liability aspect of it. We don't want to necessarily get into a use of force situation with someone who is acting violently or irrational if it's a medical emergency.
The reason behind
Yeah. So that's what we talk about, trying to contain them, making sure we have medical on scene.
Yes.
Try to handle this thing as quickly, but as delicately as possible when we can. Sometimes, depending on the situation, we may not have that opportunity, and the officer's gonna have to do what they have to do. But we've been fortunate so far, and that's where the training really plays a critical role in making those decisions.
Well, I just appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
I understood that. Thank you for sending it.
Moving on to treasurer, any questions? Treasurer? Moving on to council discussion.
I got two quick for the village attorney. Obviously probate is coming up. Is that correct? Or did that happen for the three?
That's scheduled, yeah.
Yeah. And then the Generac issue is pretty much what?
The Generac issue, it's really interesting when you get down to the timeline of that. It seems that the first warranty complaint was within the 2 years of the warranty provision. And then, of course, the next one was almost exactly 2 years later. So clearly outside the warranty. There are 4 that I could clearly identify. So there's an email, and I think most, if not all of you have seen it, where Jim at that time remarks on a comment from Amanda Oliveras, that the machine is clearly outside or 3 years outside the warranty period. Technically, that's true. My contention is, and will be, and has been, by the way, that the complaint has been consistently the same thing since day one. It's the flywheel. It's the flywheel. Then it's the flywheel the second time. It's the flywheel the third time. It's the flywheel the fourth time. And the fourth time they actually denied the claim or they refused to pay it because so much time lapsed from the response to the action. And now the good news, sort of, is that I've actually gotten twice now someone at Generac to answer the phone and talk to me. The first time, the gentleman made a really good suggestion. He said, find a service person to go out and look at the machine and make a report. And with Danielle's help, we got that done. And the service person was from Adrian Electric and Generator. He went out, he opened the box, he looked, and sure enough, what did he find? A messed up flywheel. And he took pictures of it. So the contention that it's always been the same thing, it's never been something different, and the things have been a mess since the day they brought it out there, I think carries a lot of water, right? Yeah. We just got the report back, and we're going to supply that to the second person at Generac that I spoke to, and they've suggested at least that they're willing to carry it forward. Now, my fear is that it ends up on the desk of Amanda Oliveras again, and I get nothing for my effort. And I already drafted the complaint. The 2x4 that we talked about, the breach of warranty complaint. This is a continuing breach of warranty.
It should have reset every time we saw somebody else.
Well, I wish it worked that way.
It's a level. It's the same thing. It's the same problem. It wasn't fixed.
You and I are 100% on the same page, Mike. That's right.
Okay.
But yeah, we're gonna do that, and we're gonna give these people the chance to do the right thing. But pretty soon we got to pull the trigger on it.
Thank you.
Moving on to the committee of the whole agenda.
I have nothing unless you guys have something you'd like to request.
Is it too soon to have a discussion on what a unit is and see if we can settle some of that?
I believe that it would be, yes. I have been working on this. I'm not obviously the only thing I've been working on. I will continue to, I'm gonna try to work with Matt. And then I would really like you guys to hear from John Holland, like Mike talked about as well. So I think it is. I would not be able to prepare very much for you guys. If you want to, we certainly can try, but.
I think we should hold off until we can have John here. Does that sound good?
I hope it happens soon, because
Definitely.
thank you.
And I can follow up with John tomorrow and see where he's at.
Okay. Go ahead.
Budget amendments, like this year, fiscal year, the budget amendments, they have to be addressed before
Yeah,
September.
we'll be on the
They'll be on the
26th.
26th. Okay, just I wasn't sure if you wanted to talk about those.
Yeah, no, I honestly, 2 weeks ago was like, I'm gonna start doing budget amendments, and it's just been terrible, not terrible, that's not a good word, it's just been very busy. So I started them, didn't make it very far, and then have not even looked at it again, but I will have that to you guys. A lot of it, Mike, is going to be because of the chart of accounts, which is, it's going to take me a little bit because most of it we have budgeted just in a different account from where we expensed it from, and it'll be correcting that.
Well,
And
it just
then-
has to happen, or the auditors are gonna be.
Correct,
working on this
yeah,
as well.
we'll get dinged on that by the auditors if not, but I will have it to you guys on the 26th.
Thank you.
Public comment, items not on the agenda. Introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Judge Todd Morgan. Basically, I wanted to introduce myself, let you know who I am. I do have somebody running against me for the November 8th election. So of course, I figure if I introduce myself, then hopefully you'll at least know me and maybe consider voting for me. Ashley Hanson Grimes is running against me. She's been an attorney since 2012. I've been an attorney since 2010. We've both done a whole bunch of things as attorneys. I've been a solo practitioner. I was a public defender assigned to district courts. I have a lot of experience in district court. But Ms. Hanson Grimes can also attest to her qualifications as an attorney. What I think differentiates me and what makes me a better judge is what I did before becoming an attorney. Right out of high school, I joined the Navy, was a nuclear machinist, made 2 tours in the Persian Gulf, once in Desert Storm. I got out of the Navy because my ex-wife was not able to be a mother. That's a whole other story. But I wound up being a single parent, working as a security guard, pizza delivery person in the Naval Reserve, going to school full-time, all at one time. So I do know what it's like to struggle. I then worked as a forensic security aide in a mental health hospital prison, and I worked there for a decade. I was not an attorney, I was not a doctor. I worked directly with the patient prisoners. I fed them their meals, I played games with them, I ran Schizophrenics Anonymous groups with them. And again, I believe these experiences make me a better judge. I then met my wife and married her. We've been now married 24 years. And while working full-time with a family, I went back to school, earned my MBA, and became a financial analyst with Michigan Rehab Services. And MRS helps people with disabilities to either get or keep jobs. I then earned 100% scholarship to law school, went back to school, earned my Juris Doctorate degree, magna cum laude, and then became an attorney. As I said, I believe these experiences make me a better judge. I also try to give back to the community. At one time, I was on the Village of Clinton's board for about 10 years. I was a board member of Housing Help with Lenawee, of Habitat for Humanity. I am on the board for the Salvation Army. I was at one time a substitute teacher. I'm a first vice commander of my American Legion post, etc. I try to give back. I did apply for the position when Judge Poore retired. Ashley, some other individuals also applied for that position. The Michigan Bar Association did a background check. They vetted us, they interviewed us, and I don't know the behind the scenes, but then the governor's office had a team that also interviewed us, and I was selected. I was sworn in April 11th at 9:30 in the morning, and at 10 o'clock I had a docket. I will be the judge until at least December 31st, and I'm hoping with a little bit of help beyond that. There is a meet and greet Thursday, this coming Thursday, in Adrian at Chalmers. If anybody's interested, I have invites for that. I also have little pamphlets that basically tell you a little bit about if anybody would be interested. And thank you for letting me introduce myself, and would anybody like to pass?
I guess, please, yeah.
Well, thanks for your patience.
Thanks.
As I said, I was on the village council of pension programs, so I actually understand.
You have a big ice might be able to do it.
Yeah, come on, we have something. We need to decide something.
It's too late to do this right now. Yes, of course. Take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Sorry.
Public comment?
Yes, sir, sorry.
I'm Virgil Diver, I live at 662 Corey Circle. I'm a need free. I've lived for 51 years, and I think I drove Jim Wanacott and his wife out of the council because of what I'm talking about. Might still be laughing, but the weed ordinance in this town is terrible. First of all, it's too high for one thing. You got this, what, 12 inches here? And then like Deerfield, Clinton, and some of the others, it's 6 inches. It's 12 inches now and nobody enforces it. I talked to Mrs. Gross about this a couple weeks ago, but this is just one instance, but on High Street, it looked like a hayfield and somebody finally cut it, but all they did was pile the grass out by the road. So we had a pile of grass that high for about 2 months now. And then there's weeds out by the highway, the same way out by the highway or the street that high. Nobody does anything about it. I don't care about letters, I don't care about anything. I can't understand why all the money you have, you spend on everything else, you couldn't just tell the DPW guys, and we've got a great DPW crew, just go pick up that grass and get it out of the way. If I was a neighbor, I'd burn it. And I'm telling you, I'd burn it. This is ridiculous, the way you let this town go by. It looks like a junkyard, and that's just one street. It's on a lot of the streets. So you have ordinances, you talk about Matt's water, and then you got another ordinance you don't do anything about. So I'm just saying, I would appreciate if somebody would try and take care of things a little better. Where I live, I don't have to worry about it because we mow all the lawns out there the same. But there's other people live in town here and they drive by it, and I have to drive by it and it looks terrible. That's all I have to say. Oh, no, I have another thing in regards to water. I go to Florida for 5 months. So if I take my meter out, is my water cheaper? I heard it is.
Yes, if your water meter is removed, you are not billed until it's put back in service.
So what's the difference in the price?
If you remove, so you're being billed the monthly availability because you have no usage during that time, so it'd be 101.18 right now. If you remove your meter, you would not be billed that every month.
What would I
Until
be
you
billed
come
on?
back.
You would be billed
Okay,
the
nothing.
reinstall fee though for the DPW.
If you, right, you have to pull the meter out and then you get no bill until the meter is put back in. You do need to pull a plumbing permit to have that pulled. DPW verifies that the meter's pulled, the plumbing permit's $75. And then you get no bill until you put the meter back in.
Okay.
But there's a reconnect fee too.
The turn on fee,
Yes.
yes, $90 is the turn on.
Yeah, it's something to look into.
So I just have to figure out the difference.
Right, otherwise you're
My
paying
calculation is-
101.18 every month, and I'm not sure how long you're gone for. If you need help figure out which is gonna be better, so let me know.
Okay, well, I've had other people that go too, nobody's ever told them you could do this.
I know we've had several people ask us about it, and all of the staff has told them, at least in my experience. So if they've asked, we've let them know what that process is.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the discussion on the weed ordinance. But try to look at that a little bit closer. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn. Lisa, can you call the roll?
Jerry,
Yes.
Barb? Yes. Gwen?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.